So, as a red-blooded American and most importantly a 90s kid, Disney movies have a special place in my heart. And I was especially charmed by Pocahontas. I love how whimsical she is and how she stand up to her oppressors to prove that she and her people are worthy of respect and admiration. My favorite song from that movie is The Colors of the Wind, and it's where she addresses the leader of the oppressors and said, "You think that I'm an ignorant savage, and you've been so many places, I guess it must be so, but I can't see if the savage one is me. How can there be so much that you don't know?" And through that song, she builds a relationship with him and opens him up to learning that maybe she's not all that she appears to be, and most importantly, not all that other people have ascribed to her and her people. So this movie has a feel-good ending. Like any Disney movie, everyone lives happily ever after. But for Carlos Montezuma and the Yavapai Indians, this was real life, and they weren't guaranteed a good ending. The white man had decided that the Indians were savages, and no one could convince them otherwise. So today I'm going to tell you about Carlos Montezuma, who he was, what he stood for, and the speech that started it all. In the Light on the Indian Situation speech, he details his life as an American Indian. He uses his experiences to show that Indians can be assimilated into American culture. So what's so unique about his story? Well, Carlos Montezuma was born to Yavapai parents, and his birth name was actually Wasaja, which means beckoning. At 5 years old, his tribe was attacked by raiders from a Pima nation, who were rival nations to the Yavapai. He was attacked and taken and sold into slavery. And the man who bought him was an Italian man named Carlo Gentili, and he bought him for 30 silver pieces. And the man who sold Carlos actually used the 30 silver pieces to buy himself a coat. And Carlo Gentili was a photographer, so he took his picture. So Carlo Gentili adopted Wasaja, had him baptized and given a Christian name, Carlos Montezuma. So he gave him his own name and raised him as his own son. Life was really difficult for Carlos because he didn't speak the white man's tongue. So he encountered all sorts of ignorance with people who thought that he was a savage. He actually got involved with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show playing the son of Cochise, and his job was to run up and down the aisles shooting fake arrows at the actors, where people would jeer at him and laugh and call him a savage. So he eventually settled in Chicago, and he was left with a preacher's family where he began school. He actually graduated high school and started university at age 14. He started Chicago Medical College at 17 and became a doctor at age 23. So he was taken from his home at age of 5 and raised by a paleface in an urban society. Why is it then that he's considered one of the most influential men in Native American history? Well, he was not raised by his Yavapai parents, but he never lost sight of his Native American heritage. In 1889, he was hired by the Bureau of Indian Affairs as a physician at an Indian reservation, Fort Stevenson. He discovered there the conditions in the reservations were absolutely terrible, and he ascribed this problem to a lack of supervision from the Bureau of the reservations. This led to a conflict between him and the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the way that they ran things. So he actually quit the government job and began to speak out against them. He advocated citizenship for the American Indians and became known to the Bureau of Indian Affairs as a troublemaker, and the FBI actually accused him of inciting disloyalty to the United States of America. But 1 year after his death, the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 was passed, which declared all Native Americans as citizens of the United States. Yay. So Carlos Montezuma's life was dedicated to formally opposing the treatments of the Native American Indians. One of his first most influential speeches was the Light on the Indian Situation. On October 5th, 1912, he formally began his activism career in an address to the American Society of Indians, which he'd helped establish. He actually didn't want to attend this meeting, as he hadn't attended the first meeting, because he felt like they had completely gotten off track and were no longer furthering their political agenda and were just meeting for the sake of meeting. But he was actually courted by several society members who had pleaded with him to attend, and so he attended the conference on October 5th and spoke, and he gave this speech. So he spoke against the dehumanization of the reservation Indians, and he begins in a really poignant way. He says, Senator Smith of Arizona, when a member of the House of Representatives said, "There is more hope of educating the rattlesnake than of educating the Apaches. I am an Apache." So he spoke against the criminalization and the dehumanization of the Indian people. He said they were shot down like dogs and sold into captivity, even though slavery had been abolished in America 5 years before. He fought the Indian reservations and said that Indians should fight for citizenship. He said that colonization, segregation, and reservation are the home, the very hothouse of personal slavery, and are no place for the free and the home of the brave. Like Pocahontas from the Disney movie, Montezuma rose up above the expectations and oppression to prove that he himself and his people are worthy of respect despite all that they've endured. And thanks to Carlos Montezuma, they all got real-life happy endings after all.